Hello, Professor Roos and Dr. Murthy. It's great to see you again. I'm so excited to have you here today because we're talking about a topic that is very popular, a trend that seems to be really exploding all around the world. Eyelash growth serum. It appears that almost every brand under the sun these days is trying to find the holy grail for making our lashes long and luscious. So I would like both of you, experts from Face Restoration in London, to explain a little bit to us. What exactly does eyelash growth serum mean, and why people with sensitive eyes really should think twice about using these products? And it would be great if Professor Roos, you could explain first for all of us, what are sensitive eyes?
I think it's important to remember that the eyes are really important for communication. And having long lashes is something that's been a goal for people wearing makeup since antiquity. And in the old days, people used to put on all kinds of things. The Egyptians would use coal and things like that and apply that. But of course, some of these things would be heavy metals. Some of them would be highly sensitizing agents. And what we find in our clinic is that often as people get older, they become less and less tolerant of various cosmetics. And so sensitive eyes can happen, you're not just born with it, it can happen to anyone. Some people, of course, have extreme sensitivities. And this is where the immune system, your body just doesn't like stuff. But you can, like with nickel allergies and things, these things can develop later in life. And the same thing can happen on the eyelids. And we see it quite frequently.
Sensitivities in terms of what? Dry eye disease, contact lens use, even glaucoma patients, or, what are sensitive eyes from your practice?
All of the above.
Really? So
redness, swelling, watering, discomfort, can't wear your contact lenses.
Meibomian gland dysfunction, dry eye disease, people with contact lens wear scleral lens. I mean, wow. So pretty much everyone has sensitive eyes, but there are millions of people out there that have more than sensitive eyes. So Dr. Murthy, could you explain a little bit about what are these eyelash growth serums? I mean, it was once upon a time, there was a pharmaceutical company that discovered, what is it, a chemical or something that makes our eyelashes grow. Could you explain a little bit of this miracle? It's a PGA, a prostaglandin analog. What is it? And how does it make these lashes grow longer? And then we'll get back into why sensitive eyes should just stay away.
I mean, it's not so long ago, actually, that a company called Allergan, a really big company that makes lots of things that we all use, and that we work with products from their pharmaceutical range to this day still. They developed a drop for treating patients who have raised pressure in their eye called glaucoma. And this particular drop, the Matoprost at that time, also had a byproduct, which was the holy grail that we're all searching for. These patients who were treating their eyes to reduce their pressure found that their eyelashes grew longer. And so this spawned a whole industry for producing a lash serum called Ptosis, which at that time was FDA approved for the people who were losing their lashes for other reasons. So things like cancer treatments and autoimmune diseases that can cause loss of lashes. So this particular lash serum, which was applied slightly differently to the glaucoma drops, it was applied with an applicator, and it still is to this day, applied with a little brush applicator to the edge of the eyelids to encourage lash growth in those people that had loss of lashes, became a very well prescribed treatment. But then that spawned another industry, which is that anybody could then start producing the same product and include these little molecules or these ingredients, which are prostaglandin type molecules. And so that's where the prostaglandin analog comes in. So it's not necessarily the same drug.
Let's back up for a little moment. First of all, glaucoma is
I think it's important that we I think it's important that we just tell the viewers what prostaglandins are.
Exactly. What is a prostaglandin?
So
because how does it work?
So these are little molecules in your body that cause inflammation. And when you take an aspirin to feel better and reduce inflammation, you're basically knocking out the prostaglandins. But here we're doing the opposite. We're taking a molecule that is actually there to protect you against infection. And it's there to cause inflammation, which are the 4 hallmarks swelling, pain, redness, and heat. And you're putting that directly near the eye, on the eye, in the eye, or on the lashes, or on the eyelid. And it's no surprise then that people who take these drops for glaucoma, older people, maybe your relatives, they'll often walk around and they look like they have wet, sore, red eyes, the sort of eyes you know that old people have. Often this is not just because they have dry eyes, it's often because they have these molecules called prostaglandins put in.
So wait, people that are using these prostaglandins can have red and puffy and swollen eyes, and the prostaglandins are making them more juicy, watery, and red and puffy and inflamed?
Well, look, not everybody is as reactive as the next person. And so it depends on which particular things you're using. It depends on how tolerant or intolerant you are of these ingredients. Depends on how long you use them for. It depends also whether or not also other things that can also affect the eye area and the eye surface. And we've been part of this publication, so there are a number of different things that we're going to be talking about. Not just the prostaglandin analogs that we apply to our eyes that can contribute to the sensitive eyes, but absolutely, yeah, you can get pink, red eyelid margins. You can get an overgrowth of bugs that sit around the normal skin, and they just love to feed off the little oils that are in the skin, and that the prostaglandin analog serums encourage. So you got little bugs feasting on the lashes as well. That
longer lashes,
more redness, more swelling. And then you can get cosmetic changes. Actually, you're using these treatments to make your eyelashes to grow longer.
Right.
But one of the side effects of long-term use is that it can actually cause breakdown of the fat cells in the front of the eyelid. So
that means like the fat, your eyes sort of look like they're sucked into your skull. So
they look sunken, and they can look sunken, and they can look more aged. So you get this sort of A-frame, what we call an A-frame deformity, where there's a big sort of hollow up above the eyelid. And so it's a complete opposite of what we're trying to achieve, to enhance the beauty around the eyes, and it can make it look much older.
I think the other thing is these are not just, when you buy something like that, we spoke last week about preservatives and the danger of preservatives. All these will have the active ingredients, so something like prostaglandin, one of the prostaglandin analogs, but then it'll also have some nasty preservative in it. It'll have other things. It may have some heavy metals, it may have some formaldehyde, all kinds of things.
Right.
Exactly. And that's why the TFOS report was so important, because it identifies all the molecules. And if it were just one or two molecules, then we'd figure it out and we'd exclude them. But the take-home message is that you've got to be smart about looking at what's in your products.
But how do we know? Because there are prostaglandins, but there are also synthetic prostaglandins. And I've seen there are lash growth serums, there are now mascaras with prostaglandins in them, or synthetic prostaglandins, even if you aren't intentionally buying something that's an eyelash growth serum. So, I mean, how do we know? Because obviously, yes, we all want longer, lusher lashes, but the thing is, truthfully, if we could have, this lash growth serum will make our lids swell, or eyes water, or more red, or cause the eyes to look sunken in our skulls, or, change our eye color, all these things. I mean, how do we know if it's safe? 2, how do we know what to look for in the products? And then 3, I mean, is this something that we can use on a long term? Is it better to get it from a doctor? Can we buy it over the counter? Can we buy it online? I mean, what are we supposed to know? Because this is kind of scary.
Okay.
I'm pretty.
Okay. I'm going to try and divide the question into little bits. And so to answer your last bit first, yes, you can buy it over the counter. You can get these products around the world, but there are some countries that have now banned it. So Sweden, for instance, has banned products, lash growth serums that contain prostaglandin analogs. And maybe other countries will follow suit. But there are plenty of cosmetic serums, lash serums that you can buy over the counter that contain prostaglandin analogs, the synthetic analogs that are hidden in the ingredient list. Somewhere in the fine print, you might look out for prost as the beginning of the word, or mesoprostyle acetate is another synthetic one. And very often they're not even listed. So you've got to be really careful. There's pros and cons. If it's prescribed by an ophthalmologist or an optometrist, then they'll be able to look after your eyelids. There might be some advantageous reasons for using these serums, because you want the lashes to grow longer for medical reasons. But
And in some people, they have a lot of fullness of fat in the upper lid, so it doesn't matter to them if they lose a little bit. But if you are a youngish person and you're trying to grow your lashes, and then you end up hollow at an early age, you will look much older. So rather than looking more attractive, you'll look less attractive. And potentially then, as you age, you'll get extremely hollow to the point where it looks pathological.
I mean, as a consumer, the best advice we can give is to look for products and look for ranges that actually make the statement that they don't contain these ingredients, or they make eye safe, like Eyes of the Story, for instance, eye safe cosmetics that don't contain these ingredients. They state exactly what they don't contain, rather than looking for what they contain, which is sometimes difficult to do.
Yeah, but I think the important thing is, to summarize somewhat, you have to take a scientific approach to this. You have to be informed. You have to take a really close look at what's in the ingredients you're putting on your face, right? And unless you're going to be scientific about it, unless you're going to care and really, examine what you're putting on your skin, you could end up in heaps of trouble, and you could become sensitized and therefore unable to use those products. I mean, the most challenging situation we see in clinic is where people have been wearing contact lenses for a long time. They've become very used to it. And then suddenly, over a period of months, they become contact lens intolerant. And it can be very difficult to undo that damage. But one of the things we've used is the makeup range that you've helped to create, the Eyes of the Story range. And we use other things as well, such as light treatments and the Purify spray that we've developed to help settle the inflammation, get rid of some of these prostaglandins that are, swimming about, causing inflammation, and reset the physiology of the eyelid,
so
that
then
the goblet cells start producing mucin, so that the lipids, the oils are
juices, so the juices lubricate correctly. We love the science, Jonathan, but Professor Roos, but
yeah, I mean, it's not just the juices lubricate properly. The juices don't attract this breeding ground for bacteria that can cause more harm. So it's, there's lots of little things that can contribute to the sensitive eyes. And even if you don't have them now, if you in the future continue to use things like this and add in everything else that can affect the eye surface, and then you potentially develop glaucoma and you use cosmetics as well as the glaucoma drops, and it's just a whole kind of worm opening up.
Right. So basically you would recommend, so say people that have dry eyes or MGD, or again, there's a whole myriad of sensitivities, but so what would you recommend if they think that an eyelash growth serum will solve all of their problems, because they typically have challenges with cosmetics? What would you recommend?
I think what some people might jump to a conclusion here is that they should go for false lashes that you just stick on, because that seems safer. But in fact, some of the glues used for attaching those eyelashes can be incredibly toxic. And particularly, I remember seeing a paper from South Korea. There was a whole host of people who had severe burns of the cornea, which at this point, it means not just are your eyes uncomfortable, you actually can't see anymore, you lose vision. And what I think particularly with these things, one has to be extremely careful. So what is the answer? The answer is to like yourself the way you are, shock horror, and to use cosmetics that are formulated not to contain toxins. And I would say avoid these prostaglandins unless you've spoken to a doctor, because it's a medical molecule. It's biologically active. It's something you don't just want to apply willy-nilly. And then use products that are certified to be eye safe, such as your line. I mean, you never blow your own horn, Amy, but your dad was a professor at Harvard. He spent his life's work basically investigating these types of things, and you've managed to sort of take advantage of that family connection and build something really special, which we have used on very famous patients, famous actresses, actors who have become contact lens intolerant, and now they're able to wear their makeup again. They're able to wear their contacts.
Incredible.
So I mean, that's why we're here today, supporting your little makeshift YouTube channel.
Well, we have a lot to share about sensitive eyes and how cosmetics can actually be used safely for people with sensitive eyes. And there is obviously a lot more to this story, and it is very important, the science behind all of this, because it's very difficult to understand packaging and marketing and regulations and really translating the science. So thank you, Professor Roos and Dr. Murthy, for explaining a little bit more about eyelash growth serum and how it works and why those with sensitive eyes really should think twice about putting some of that on their lids. And as always, please talk to your doctor first. So thank you again for joining me today, and I look forward to carrying on this.
Amy, what are we speaking about next week?
What are we speaking about next week? I actually think it would be good, since we are talking about eyelash growth serum and the PGAs, there are also lash growth serums out there that are purported all natural and safe for sensitive eyes. So I would love to address the natural alternatives and hear your expert advice on that area. So thank you. Thank you.
Watch this space. Bye.
Bye-bye.